The Sunset Strip Diaries, Chapter 15, Enter Heroin, Stage Left. Journal entry, September 4th, 1992. Went over to Raz's place. I know, he's a traitor. But I was bored and needed a break from the others. He started a band with Teddy St. John, Frankie, Birdie's crush, Dusty, and this new stuck-up blonde guy named Bradley, who is dating Sabrina. Sabrina looks like a completely different person. She got her boobs, nose, and lips done. She even changed her eye color. They are now green. Her hair is much longer and even lighter blonde, almost white. She told me that she and Bradley were secretly married. Who knows why that has to be a secret? Probably for his image. When I walked through the front door, Raz led me by the shoulders to meet Bradley, who said he was happy to meet me and that they all talked about me all the time. Great. We all got hammered and went to the shithole that is FM's station, where Raz and I started pissing everybody off again. We were girl-hitting each other, snorting with laughter, and rolling around the booth. Teddy was mad and calling us pricks and assholes. Raz started calling him Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and I think we were calling him fat and making fun of his toes for some reason. I don't know. Whenever Raz and I hang around each other too long, everybody hates us and we end up with no friends, and this night was no exception. Journal entry, September 5th, 1992. I sprained my foot last night on Sunset and I can't walk. I heard my name being called from the cars in the traffic jam, and when I turned to look back, I tripped really hard in front of Gazzari's. I was loaded, but I think I would have tripped anyway. Naturally, it had to be Sonny in the car yelling my name, and I just had to trip and fall on my face right in front of him. My sister had to take me to the hospital later that night, and they were pushing me around in a wheelchair. Sorry, guys. Before that, I went over to Raz's, and Teddy was over there. They were bored and stretching their faces in the mirror and trying to chase me with fireplace tools. We finally got up and drank a fifth of Jim Beam between the three of us. Teddy and I were singing the Beastie Boys all loud, So What You Want, and he was going to pour me another shot, and I didn't see him, and I pulled my glass off the table to drink it, and he dumped the shot on the table. We were cracking up. We went to Sunset really late, and Teddy was picking me up and swinging me in circles, and we were falling all over the place, and right after that is when I fell down and hurt my foot. Teddy called me a training wheel needing limping motherfucker. We went to a party after that. Raz and Teddy were being overprotective, and it was pissing off Leslie, who thought he was with me, I guess. On the way to the party, Raz and Teddy were singing Dramarama's Tiny Candles at the top of their lungs and banging the dashboard of Teddy's Jeep to play the air drums. Teddy tried to slam the windshield for effect, no big deal. Then Raz tried to do it, and the entire windshield cracked. We went to Jack in a Box, and Teddy laid out all of his food on the hood and stood there eating in the dark. He wouldn't speak to either of us. He was so mad. Raz showed me a bunch of pictures of himself at 15 and 16. He was shirtless, tan, and lanky, wearing this frosty violet-pink lipstick. He was pouting and striking a feminine pose. And in the background were all these pink blankets and a hot pink comforter, Poison posters all over the wall. I asked him what his mother did when he started wearing lipstick and all that, and he said she just had to deal with it. A woman named Shandy Becker started supplying Teddy with drugs. And I'm not talking some pot or a few pills. I'm talking straight up heroin. He started spending a lot of time with her, and Raz and I were concerned. He was no longer funny or cool when he was under the influence. Teddy was another person who I actually really did like because he was smart and he was very witty. I clicked with him and had chemistry with him, although nothing ever happened between us. For some reason, I saved the process of hooking up for people I didn't really like, but who were sought after by other people. I couldn't get hurt that way. Journal entry, September 7th, 1992. I drank another bottle with Teddy and Raz last night, and it was no fun because Teddy was insulting me and Raz was crying and depressed over Missy, who he's in love with. Teddy came up with this bright idea to call Shandy Becker. He said it was because she would take us all out and buy us drinks. Raz and I just looked at each other. We knew he should not be around her. She's always stocked with coke and heroin, and Teddy's highly addicted to it all. She's completely fatal for him. She tattooed a picture of his face on her back. It seems as if she uses the drugs to keep him around, and it always works. There's not a time when he will go out with her and come back sober. We told him we didn't think it was a good idea, and he said, well, fuck you guys. You have anything better planned? Becker will treat all three of us. Just making a suggestion. I am not going to touch shit. So what happens? We find Shandy Becker at FM station, go back to her place. Teddy goes and does lines. We try to leave for hours, and he keeps saying, oh, just one more shot, trying to get her into the bedroom or bathroom for more drugs. She came over to Raz and me with a sad look on her weathered face. I want to go to sleep, she said. She wanted him out. I always thought she was the one who was cornering him and trying to keep him around, but we saw what was really going on. I found his car keys and I stood up with Raz. Teddy, we're leaving. Are you coming? His back was to us and Shandy's profile was staring at his face. He looked at her and said, we're having a barbecue tomorrow. A barbecue. Are you coming? There'll be food there and... Sure, she said. Well, then I'll just sleep here. It doesn't matter where I sleep, does it? She looked at him and shook her head no, even though it was clear she wanted him to stay with her. I'm not partying tonight, Teddy, she said softly. I looked at her messy, damaged, wild blonde hair and her bulbous nose. He would not turn towards her. We still only saw the back of him. So I'll just sleep here, he said. Raz had enough. He's not one to stand around and wait for someone or put up with much bullshit, unless, of course, it's being doled out by Missy. Later, he said in a loud voice. We walked out and we left him there. Later that day, the barbecue was canceled. Dusty said he did not want a bunch of drug addicts at his house. Teddy's still at Shandy Becker's and will be for days, as usual. Raz is depressed to tears about Missy again. He's so in love with her that he's going to get an ulcer. He showed up to her place unannounced and thought it would be a good idea to try and crawl through her bedroom window to leave her a message. She happened to be home as he was trying to get in, and she threw a full Coke can at his head. I told him not to ever invade a girl's privacy and that I would have done the same thing. But I love her. I just want to be with her. How can one person turn my life into a living hell? She's probably not even thinking about me right now. Michael used to be like that over some chick. I remember he begged me to call her up and pretend I found him dead on the floor next to a bottle of pills. Journal entry, September 12th, 1992. Raz and I went to FM station on Thursday night and got into a huge fight. I told him to get the fuck out of my car, and he was stunned. He couldn't believe it. I was not fucking around, though, and he knew it. I pulled over and said, get the fuck out. He said, but we're in the middle of nowhere. And I said, I don't give a fuck. And he shut his mouth pretty quickly. Word on the street is that Teddy started smoking heroin one of those nights that he was with Shandy Becker. I don't see how smoking it can be worse than injecting it, but it's a definite indicator to the people in this crowd that you're going street, hardcore street, when you start smoking a drug. I feel like these people party because they're sick and hurting. Journal entry, September 13th, 1992. Last night I hung out with Leslie. He's living with some girl who wasn't home. He said he went to buy her tampons the other day and a full face of makeup, and people were staring at him. While I have a soft spot for Leslie, he is in no way smooth. He kept grabbing my arms and roughly pulling me over, saying, come here, and tugging at me and poking me and stuff. I'm getting sick and tired of all this rough shit with these guys. I said, be a gentleman. You're throwing me all over the place. And he said he knew, but he just wanted to hang out with me. As he gripped one of my wrists, the door of the apartment swung open, and a guy named Spider walked in with two girls, one of whom was really into Leslie from what I recall at a No Bozo Jam show a few weeks back. She could not wipe the scowl off of her Seattle face. I had a strong feeling it was because I was there, and Leslie verified that once she was gone. She couldn't even look at me. I even asked her what was wrong. She was lying on the floor, with long stringy red hair and a pale, delicate face, wine-colored lips and dark eyes. She wore a navy blue vintage sailor dress, white fishnet stockings, and white go-go boots. What a poor sport. Leslie tried making out with me, but I said no because he was wearing black lipstick and I didn't want it getting all over me. He said, most girls only like me because I'm in some band. I don't like that. It's convenient when I want to screw someone. I can always find a girl who will, ugly or not. I just hate hearing girls talk about all the other guys and bands they know. You don't do that. In my head, I was like, really? I don't? Not only was it totally uncomfortable over there, but there was a ferret locked in the bathroom. I had to pee, and Leslie had to wrangle the damn thing and remove him so I could go in. We drove to the Strip after that fiasco, and I parked in some remote spot. I was trying to be discreet about being seen with him, and that was pretty hard because he's really freaking tall and he has bright pink hair. He noticed that I was trying to hide him, and he said, "You're ashamed of me, aren't you?" "No," I lied, looking into his apple green eyes. "Well, I can't have people thinking I'm running around with too many guys. Besides, how do they know that I really love you?" I said, smiling. "You do love me, don't you?" he said. "Sure I do," I said. 3 Middle Eastern men walked around the corner as we were getting out of the car and started yelling stuff to us. Leslie was scared and said, "Come on, let's go. What if they have guns or something?" I said, "I'm not going anywhere," and I took out my compact and checked my makeup, completely ignoring them. I saw a bunch of my friends on the Strip, and Leslie ran into his friends and told them about the Middle Eastern men, and his story was completely different from what really happened. He was saying he got all loud with them. I stepped right in front of him and cut him off mid-sentence and called him a huge liar and told his friends he was scared and wanted to leave because they had guns. His friend Dexter, who was wanted for manslaughter, by the way, just looked at Leslie and walked away. Pepper looked at Leslie a second longer, and he walked away too. Leslie said, "Why'd you have to embarrass me?" And I said, "Why'd you have to lie?" I went to a party and saw all of my drunken friends. Some Asian girl proceeded to take off all of her clothes and show everyone her crotch piercings. I feel guilty because it was completely my fault. I said, "Let us see," when she talked about having them. I did not think she'd be whipping it all out. She was so drunk she did not know what she was doing. Strange was really loaded, lying on a big white stuffed bear, and he tried to kick me when I called him a drunken lug, and I hit him with a big Sparklets bottle, and then he got my head under one arm and Chantel's under the other, and he rammed our heads together, which hurt. Pepper cuddled up with the Asian girl in the bed, and they fell asleep. Boy, she's going to freak out when she rolls over and sees him in the morning with his neon greenish yellowish hair the color of lemon lime Gatorade. Tons of makeup and that X over his lip. By the way, that girl became a porn star. Side note. Journal entry, September 19th, 1992. I am now 19, which, so far, has been uneventful. Bertie and I went to a Faster Pussycat concert in Ventura County. The night was awful. I had a bad cold, and I was rubbing my makeup off and blowing my nose the whole way there. Bertie was driving her parents' car. She only learned to drive a month or so ago and had never been on the freeway before. I did not take that into consideration and was pressuring her to drive faster and get in the fast lane. She started swerving all over the freeway, losing control of the car. We smashed into the center divider of the 101 in Agora. The whole side of the car was smashed in, 2 hubcaps were missing, and the hood was up like a tent. We had our seat belts on, so we were okay, although my ribs hurt really bad. We looked at each other, both drenched in vanilla shakes that had been in the cup holders. Her eyes were bugging out, and I saw that she was about to hyperventilate, so I just hugged her. She was about to cry, and I said, "Don't cry, you're going to ruin your makeup." And she listened to me and all of my wisdom. I knew she wouldn't want to ruin it because she had it done by a makeup artist for the special event. There are car accidents, and then there is ruining a perfect makeup job. Nobody stopped to help us. We mopped the food and drinks off of our cute outfits, trying to pull ourselves together. And being the Einstein that I was, I got out of the car on the freeway and checked the tires to see if they were still intact. We decided to continue in the smashed car, sticky and frazzled, to the show. The show must go on, people. We thought we were going to the Academy Awards or something. But when we got there, it was a nondescript place in the middle of nowhere that was only missing a rattlesnake and some tumbleweeds. I half expected some cowboys to come out and have a motherfucking shootout. Anyway, I was hoping to meet a rad guy, but when I got there, I already knew everybody. Our little clan got there in bits and pieces and eventually formed one big ball of chaos. The couple of hundred other onlookers who came there to see the show stood around and watched all of us cause a ruckus. All of the random all of the random guys tried to get near Birdie and me. Birdie had her hair professionally done in big, perfect, bouncy curls. She had on fake eyelashes and red, glossy lipstick, and a little plaid schoolgirl skirt, and Fredericks of Hollywood spiked platform heels. I had on black velvet platform shoes. They were Birdie's. Do you think I could afford shoes? A tight black vest with no shirt underneath, and black and white gingham hot pants. My own friends were hitting on me, and girls were snubbing me left and right. All the random girls tried to get near our guy friends like Alley Cat Scratch, and the girls were saying to them, "You must be from Hollywood." And of course they called us sluts, because we knew all the guys, and I mean, it didn't look good with all the guys hanging all around us and everything, but I no longer care. All of the Hollywood people pulled their usual antics, and let me tell you, in an area outside of Hollywood, their antics were completely unacceptable and worthy of being thrown out of the place. First off, Leslie started throwing me up against a wall. I wasn't fazed, but when he started spilling beer on me, that was a different story. Nevertheless, the security guards saw him tossing me around. They jumped on him, beat the crap out of him, and threw him out. Then Michael was thrown out for whipping out his thing and peeing in the lobby, right on the carpet in front of everyone. After that, Robbie Black was thrown out for drunkenly messing with Faster Pussycat's wires and amps and stuff up front. I saw that one of his front teeth was knocked out, and I was told it was from the night before when he tried to jump out of a car on the freeway. When I returned Birdie's shoes to her at the end of the night, she noticed there was a small rip on one of them from the car accident. My feet jutted out in front of me and hit something in her car when we crashed. She told me I owed her new shoes. I was like, "Bitch, you got us in a car accident. If you wouldn't have crashed, your fucking shoes would still look good." She said that if I wouldn't have worn the shoes, they'd be safe at home with no rip. Then I was like, "Okay, well then my ribs hurt. You need to pay for my medical bills." And she dropped it. The next weekend, my car stalled in the middle of rush hour traffic by the Hollywood Bowl. My radiator blew up and the car was overheating. Some guys pushed it to the left in a horrible crack neighborhood, where it sat, and I got a ride back somehow. What was I going to do without a car? Birdie was grounded from her parents' car after crashing it on the freeway, so we were both out of luck. During all of this, I was living at my mother's. As you can imagine, I wasn't exactly doing the chores she assigned me. I was like, "Wait, chores?" I just came off speed that I don't remember doing, was raped, was dancing with strippers in my underwear, then I was in a car accident, dodging bullets, trying not to be killed, all while in pink outfits. Well, I don't remember much about my chores, but I do know that I was supposed to take out the trash and I couldn't be bothered. So it was often left there to rot as the garbage men passed our house because the cans were not out front. I also came home at ungodly hours, if at all. And not only that, but I was always banging pots and pans at 3 a.m, drunk. I distinctly remember slicing potatoes and making hash browns in a skillet. I had phone calls at all hours of the day and night, and I was always rude and hungover. My mother put up with this stuff for only about 6 months or so. I was fired from the clothing store after missing so many days due to the sprained ankle/hurt foot. Without a job, I could not come up with the $200 to give my mother for rent that month, and she told me I had to move out. She also cited the fact that I was partying too much as another reason I was being booted. I thought it was totally unfair and didn't see what the problem was. My sister was majorly on speed by that point and could not kick it. She was hooked. I marched straight up to my mother and asked her why my sister could be a drug addict and stay in the house, and I couldn't stay in the house and be a boozer. I really threw my sister under the bus for self-serving purposes. It wasn't like I was worried about her trying to get her help. It was only to show my mother she wasn't being fair and to point out she wasn't paying attention. My mother confronted my sister and asked her point blank if she were on drugs. She of course said she was not. My mom let it go and my sister was back to doing them the very next night. She didn't ask her again and said nothing about my sister's extreme weight loss and staying up all night. In my house, as long as you weren't making a scene, you could apparently do whatever you wanted. I wouldn't know, though, because I was always making a scene. My mom suggested I go live with my dad. He had been hanging around and was trying to see us. We even went to visit him a few times. I tried to put my hard feelings behind me. I still wanted a dad. Maybe it would work out. Maybe I was just imagining all that yucky stuff. When I asked my dad if I could live with him and his girlfriend, Deborah, it seemed promising for a whole minute. I was happy to be able to spend some time with him, maybe repair our relationship. After all, it had been 3 or 4 years since he lived with us. Maybe he had cleaned up his act a little. He agreed to assist me in paying for community college, and I was relieved, until he dumped an entire handful of quarters in my hand for school books. Back then, the cheap little paperback companions were $20 maybe, but the rest of the school books ran about $75. I looked at the $5 in quarters and I thought, uh-oh, this is gonna suck. I tried to make myself at home in their apartment in Sherman Oaks, surrounded by dream catchers and Native American paintings. It was a 1-bedroom apartment, and I was to stay on the living room couch. They slept in the room, which was fine by me, except that the bathroom was off their room. They kept their door shut at night, and sometimes I really had to pee. I didn't want to knock on that door in the middle of the night in case they were doing it or something. I would have rather pissed outside in a little bowl on the patio. The first night I cried myself to sleep. They kept the sliding glass door open for some cat or something, and I was freezing and my nose was running. I felt myself getting sick. The blanket they gave me had blood on it from like someone's period or something. I was disgusted and longed for my own blankets and crocheted afghans at my mother's place. I stored my 1 box of belongings under the coffee table. As I lay there on that itchy couch, I thought about what a mistake it was to move there. I didn't realize what misery I would be in. When I woke in the morning, I had spider bites all over me. I went to call Bertie, and the phone didn't work. I just sat there and stared at the view of a stucco wall. It was the least of my worries, but it really did depress me further. I went out to dinner with my dad the next night. He took me to a dark steakhouse where he seemed to know the staff. I told him stories of the latest guys I was dating and how they were not getting the best of me and I was in control. I thought he would be impressed, but he told me not to be a ball buster. After a few drinks, he started to tell me things I wish he hadn't. He admitted he had numerous affairs while married to my mother, some of them with girls only a few years older than I was at the time. He later bragged of a waitress somewhere who was 16 and in love with him. Then he told me about a lot of gross sexual conquests he had had, some of them with people I knew as a child. It was really disturbing, and I felt he crossed a boundary by telling me such explicit things. I felt horribly and disgustingly violated, but I was frozen. I wrapped my brain in some sort of protective coating and tried to pretend I didn't hear it. No, I'm not hearing this. Strangely, or maybe not, I was sick most of the time I stayed with him. And not only that, but I drank more than I ever had. A few guys from a popular hair band lived in the same building as my father. He said he was friends with them and told me to go down to the jacuzzi to meet them. I found it strange, but tried to play it cool and went and said hi. I did have their album after all, and I did know all of their songs, and it would be cool to brag about, I supposed. One night thereafter, one of them saw me coming into the lobby from my night out. He wanted to come back to the apartment with me. He was very bold about it and didn't seem to be deterred by the fact that I lived with my father, an acquaintance of his. I turned him down flat. He would not take no for an answer and literally chased me through the halls until I got to my dad's place and shut the door in his face while he tried to invite himself in. My dad and Deborah were out somewhere. As I locked the door, I realized something. My dad had given him the okay to try and screw me. I was really hurt and tremendously disturbed. It tore a bigger hole in my soul. I had come a long way, but still a part of me always thought, is this all I am? Is this my value? It was so confusing. Afterward, I thought, okay, maybe the guy was just ballsy. Maybe my dad didn't give him the okay. But then, a few days later, I got kind of a weird lecture from Deborah. She thought I should go out and try and meet rich men. I knit my eyebrows together and sat down on the stool in the kitchen to listen to her as she boiled some hot water for tea. What was up with this lady? She wanted me to go to the Polo Lounge in Beverly Hills and order a brandy Alexander at the bar. She said if I sat there and just sipped my drink, I would meet wealthy movie executives and the like. I remember thinking, okay, a Brandy Alexander's going to be the clincher, huh? Then she explained to me that a woman is bought dinner and gifts as compensation for giving her body in the bedroom, and it was perfectly acceptable. I felt very uncomfortable at that statement. It ruined the thought of courtship and romance. Both of those things were very far from my life, but I always imagined they were at least out there somewhere. Between Deborah advising me to trade my body for riches, and my mother telling me never to marry and never have children because it wasn't worth it, I was pretty messed up in the head. I never followed Deborah's advice because I didn't want rich guys. I liked broke musicians. My father and Deborah were cooking small dinners at first, but then they got on some sort of drug and started keeping little to no food in the house. I was constantly starving. I longed to be able to go through a fast food drive-thru. I started dropping a lot of weight because there was nothing to eat. But even worse than that was the fact that they didn't buy toothpaste or laundry soap. I'm not kidding. I smelled so gross. My hygiene embarrassed me at school. I was so ashamed. My dad used baking soda to brush his teeth, and I thought, okay, fine. But they used cheap shampoo as laundry soap, and it did not get odor or stains out of my clothes. There were no sharp razors. There were no sharp razors in the shower, so I had hairy legs and armpits, unless I went somewhere else to shower. One day I left school because I smelled so badly. I had no job at this time, so I knew I was in real trouble if I thought my dad would feed me and take care of me properly. I quickly found out why my father and Deborah were eager to have me stay with them. I had a car, and they didn't. My car was not running, but that would soon change. They were very secretive and talked amongst themselves for a few days, coming up with sort of a plan. The next thing I knew, my car was towed somewhere, a credit card was borrowed, and my radiator was fixed on someone else's dime. Once the car was running, I could never use it. They considered it theirs because they had it fixed. I had to take the public bus to school, all the way on the other side of the valley. I managed to take my car to school once and found that my dad had left beer cans on the floor and a pot pipe in the ashtray. There were ashes all over the floor of my car, and I was very angry that he didn't think of the trouble that I could get into for driving with that shit in my car. And not only that, but he broke my gear shift off and left the car out of gas. Couldn't the guy drive somewhere without having to get fucked up in some way? Couldn't he wait to get home to have some beers and smoke weed? I thought, whatever, he's going to help me pay for school the next semester. I tried to spend as much time away from him as I could. On the weekends, I took a bus to the place that felt like heaven, Bertie's house. I had to take 2 buses across town, then walk from a bus stop to her parents' townhouse, up a hill somewhere. They lived in a modest place, and it was clear that they could have easily been more extravagant. I would have walked through rain, sleet, and flying monkeys to get to her house because it was there that I could take a luxurious shower. I stood under steaming hot water and lathered up with lemon grapefruit soap from the south of France, scrubbed myself with almond scrubs and sea sponges, used her coconut-scented shampoo and vanilla-scented deep conditioner. I was never so grateful as when I was over there, showering in that hot water. I got to use her thick baby blue towels and actual hair products, shine serums, glosses, sprays, mousses, large sets of rollers, a whole salon's worth of supplies. Round brushes, curling irons, barrettes, ribbon. It was divine. I borrowed her Estee Lauder foundations in thick matte glass bottles, powders in deep cobalt blue compacts, and lipsticks in heavy gold tubes. It was so much better than using a clothes iron to do my hair and a Sharpie for eyeliner. I was using a leftover bottle of Aziza foundation from 1986. I had been so broke. She had a closet full of beautiful, expensive, and showy clothing, shoes stacked in boxes to the ceiling. Her room was painted a pale cotton candy pink with white shelves containing stacks of fashion magazines and perfume bottles. Pages of French and Italian Vogue were plastered on the walls amongst stuffed animals and a few random childhood trinkets. She was still part child, really. It felt comforting to me. I used to sit in her pink recliner and read her beat-up copies of Sweet Valley High while she spent hours on her makeup and hair. I also loved the feeling of being safe under her parents' roof. I went there as often as I could, listening to her father yell at people in his deep green office, or her mother speaking French or Italian to her friends on the phone. We could eat things in the kitchen. Oh, brie and crackers, strawberries, fresh squeezed orange juice, cold chicken, slices of baguettes, chocolate chip cookies with cold milk. Oh, I wished so badly that I could move in with her, amongst the comforts of her home and her family and her old little dog. We went out every weekend, most of the time wearing coordinated outfits for maximum free stuff. Our favorite outfits were the sheer, short baby doll dresses that the dancers wore in Prince's Get Off video. Bertie had the black with white polka dots, and I had the white with black polka dots. We got them at different points in time at Playmates of Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard. With those dresses, we wore our hair slicked back into high ponytails, big hoop earrings, and false eyelashes. We also did a beach bunny theme. We tanned very dark, we wore baby pink lipstick and dark smoky eye makeup, and very tiny half shirts in pale colors, with our hair half up and half down. One time we did a disco theme with lots of silver glitter eye makeup and our hair in big, bouncy disco curls. Whatever we did, it always caused a lot of commotion, and while that was the point and it was fun, it was also a little bit embarrassing. I felt sort of childish dressing alike with another girl. It kind of felt silly. It really wasn't me. I also felt it was making a pretty bold statement as to how close we were to each other. Bertie was not well liked among the girls in Hollywood, and I knew that I would soon have more enemies by pairing up with her in such an extreme way. It didn't deter me, though. Being around Bertie was just too comforting. Her warm home, her girliness, the security of her parents, it was just too delicious to give up. We paid for nothing when we went out. She was exceptionally beautiful. I had an exceptional figure, so combined we partied for free every single time we went out. I had already been enjoying that sort of treatment for a few years by then, but it was taken to another level once I paired up with her. People looked at her face and let her talk them into going to the ATM and take out money to hand over to her. I'm not kidding you. A guy handed over his wallet once, and she opened it and took out as many bills as she wanted. And then she went and partied with the money. I couldn't believe it. I'm sure these people were drunk off their asses, but still. When we walked up to a club together, the crowds parted and we were pulled to the front of the lines. We sat down at tables, we ordered huge dinners, and strangers picked up the tab. Cindy Crawford was the big supermodel of the time, and everywhere we went people thought Bertie looked like a young Cindy Crawford. The hair, the mole, the face, the height. But there's always that something that puts you into your place when you get to that point. In this case, it was the night that I realized that there was a little private club above the Roxy. David Faustino, the guy that played Bud Bundy on Married with Children, stuck his head out the door, and we both laughed about how short he was. He heard us, walked over to us with a bottle of water, and dumped it over both of our heads in front of a huge crowd of people. We were soaked. As we walked away with frizzy hair and smeared makeup, we couldn't even look at each other. People were laughing hysterically and pointing at us and snapping pictures. We were brought down to earth momentarily. One night we could not find anything to do, so we went to a party with the dirty Seattle crowd, much to my dismay. 3 or 4 of the black-haired girls went into a dimly lit bathroom at the top of a stairway. They said they were going to do heroin and asked us if we wanted some. I said no. I was too scared. Bertie paused and looked at me and said she wanted to try it. I said, "Are you crazy?" But she wanted to experience it. The girls had tried to kick her ass only 6 months prior, and they appeared to be making peace. Maybe that's why she went. Maybe she was trying to prove something. I don't know. But she went in the bathroom with them and did it. I was totally upset by the whole thing, sitting on the stairway, waiting. I felt disturbed and worried for her. This wasn't some worldly dancer. This was a young teenager. I sat there thinking of how I was going to make sure she never did it again. Would it be too late after the first time? Would she be hooked already? What could I do? What could I say? I knew she really cared about what I thought, so I decided to use that. On the way home, I told her that I lost a lot of respect for her. I told her I could not truly be close with anyone on drugs, especially because of what it had done to my own family. I told her she was becoming a huge loser, and I didn't want to be friends with losers. I tried to say anything and everything I could think of. She felt horrible. She started crying. But she didn't stop doing heroin.